Hello, my little milk duds. How are you today? Hopefully, you're all doing really well, and you're here and you're ready, and you have your math notebook open to the next available page. And we are going to start talking about measures of center today. So before we dig into what a measure of center is, let's first define it. So a measure of center is a measure that describes the typical value of a data set. Okay, so we're talking about statistics, we're talking about data, and we're gonna learn to dig deeper into the data and have data tell us some information. So the first way we're gonna talk about that today is mean. Mean, median, and mode. Hopefully you all watched the vocabulary video on mean, median, and mode. I love that. It's my favorite vocabulary video. And my kids in the past used to always sing it in class because it's very catchy. So hopefully you all watched that video. But mean, median, and mode are all measures of center. All right, remember, make sure you're writing this down. Make sure if I'm writing it, you're writing it. Because hearing it helps put it in your head. Writing it helps put it in your head. And then solving problems helps put it in your head. That's how you learn it. All right, so median, mean, and mode are all measures of center. And today we're going to talk about mean. And mean is another word for average. So for instance, if you have an average grade in math of an 80, that would mean that the mean of all of your grades is 80. So the average of all your grades is 80, the mean of all your grades is 80. It's the same word, it's just the math way we say it. So it's a math vocabulary word, okay? And let's first talk about, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my chart that I'm going to use to find a problem. So let's go ahead and we'll write example 1. And the question that we're going to try and answer is, what is the mean, underline that because that's your word for today, mean number of text messages sent. Okay? And so we're going to do a little chart over here on the side, okay? So text messages. And I'm just going to put that in a little box, and then we'll go right underneath it. So Sean sent 120 text messages. Emma sent 95. Joe sent 101. Stacy, she sent 125. Kevin, he sent 82. Alex sent 108. And Sam sent 90. Okay. So remember, our goal is to find out what is the mean number of text messages. So let's make sure we remember mean means average. And the first thing we need to do, the first step is we have to find the sum of the data. The sum of the data. So the sum of the data equals whatever all of this is going to be. And then we divide it by the number of values. Okay? So let's go ahead and everybody pause the video. And I want you can either stack them neatly and add them. You can use a calculator. That's okay. You can add them all. Okay? And go ahead and pause the video and find the sum. If you add all of these up, the sum is what you're going to get. So go ahead and pause the video and get the sum of those values. Okay, so hopefully you paused the video and you went and found your sum and you added them all up. And hopefully you came up with 721. Okay? Now, I do want to show you something, okay? Whenever you get a data set that is written in this format, or another format, like perhaps it's in a table, or it's in a list, but it's not in number order, it's not in value order, the best thing that you can do is to go ahead and copy down the numbers in order. So you make a new list, put the data in order, okay? And my new list, 82 is going to be my lowest value. And when I put it in order, I check that one. And then the next one is 90. And that's the next one. Then I have 95. Then I have 101. Then I have 108. Then I have 120. Then I have 125. Okay, so I am telling you to put them in order because when we get into median and mode, you must put them in order. And some math questions are going to ask you for mean, median, and mode. So you have to put them in order, okay? So even though I understand that you know how to add all of these numbers up and get the total, I do understand you can do that, but when these problems get harder and we start asking you different questions, you have to know to put them in order, okay? And you have to do it in linear format. horizontally, not vertically, okay? All right, so we found our number. 720 is the sum of the data. Now, I said the sum of the data divided by the number of values. Now, I'm going to count my values. How many do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 721 divided by 7. So now I can either go and do some side math and divide 7 into 721, or I can use a calculator, however I want to do that division. So go ahead and pause the video and find the average or the mean for this problem. Okay, hopefully you paused it and you came back, and now you're going to check your answer. So the answer is 103 text messages. So there is your answer. That is the mean. All right. We're going to do another so that we can practice the format. Okay. So for this one, example 2, we're going to look at the heights of ponies. Pony heights, and this is in inches. Okay. All right, so these are our numbers: 40, 37, 39, 40, 42, 38, 38, 37, 28, and 40. All right, so those are the heights of our ponies. And the first thing, our first objective on this problem is we're going to find an outlier. We're going to find an outlier. So an outlier is a value that is a lot less or a lot more than the rest of the values. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, first step, I'm going to take my numbers and I'm going to put them in number order, in value order. So I'm going to start with 28. Then I'm going to 37, 37, 38, 38, 39. Oops, sorry. I've got fast fingers. 40, 40, and 42. And now, you know what I didn't do? I didn't mark off on my list. So what I'm going to do to double check myself, since I didn't give each of these little numbers a check, I'm going to count and make sure my lists match. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that means I actually did leave one off. And when I look at my list, I can see I left off a 40. There are actually 3 40s. So regardless of whether or not you put that check, you really have to double check yourself and count and make sure that you got all of those values, okay? Super important, because your number will be totally wrong if you just leave off one number, and that's a silly mistake. All right, so the first part of this question was to find the outlier. Remember, the outlier is a number that's a lot more or a lot less. And so one of the helpful things about putting it in order is you can go to the left and to the right. This is the less, this is the more. Now, when I look at 28 and 37, well, I mean, that's a good difference. There's a good difference there. There's a 9-inch difference, okay? And then when I look at the other numbers, I can see that they're, 37, 31, it went up 1, 39, it went up 1, 40, it went up 1, and then 42, it went up 2. So I can tell that the 28 is the outlier because there's a 9-inch difference here, but there's only a 2-inch difference here. So 28 is the outlier. All right, now the second part of the question is going to be find the mean. Remember, the mean is the average. Find the mean. And remember, we use a fraction, the total or the sum divided by the number of values. All right, so go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to find the sum of all these numbers if you add them all together. And then I want you to find the number, how many values do we have? Then I want you to do the math and then come back with your answer, and then hopefully yours will check out. Okay, so if you are returning, then hopefully that means that you have the right answer, and this is the answer. So my total was 379, and as I said before, we had 10 values. And I am dividing 379 by 10, and I have to remember that that when I do this division, I am very likely going to have a decimal. And in this case, I have 37.9 inches is my answer. Okay, so there's my answer right there, 37.9. Pretty easy, hopefully. Okay. All right, now what I want you to do is the third part. Now, I want you to find the mean, which we just did, right? So you're like, why is she telling me to find the mean? Without the outlier. So that means I know that this number is probably pulling down my mean. And most ponies are not going to be 28 inches. So I want to know what most ponies are really going to be. What is the mean height of most ponies, not the outlier. I want to get rid of that outlier so I can get a realistic number, okay? So now I'm going to take away the 28. And this time I'm going to work with 37, 37, 38, 38, 39, 40, 40, 40, and 42. So now, this time, go and find the mean for our new data set, by finding the sum of all the values and then dividing it by the number of values. Pause the video and then come back as soon as you have your answer. Okay, and hopefully you just paused it and now you're coming back. I hope you're not just sitting here waiting for me to give you the answers, because if you're not trying this, then you're not learning it very well. All right, when I add all of these values up, I get 351. And since I took 28 out of the values, I only have 9 this time. And now, when I do my division, I come up with 39 inches. And so my average or mean without my outlier is about an inch or so more. And that doesn't sound like much. You think, oh, well, it's just an inch. But when you're talking about heights that don't have much of a spread, and then you're adding in this little guy, it changed it a lot. That 1 inch is a lot. So the average height of those ponies is 39. So I can assume that the average height for most ponies is 39. Alrighty, guys. Same steps. When you go to practice, you're going to follow these same steps. So this is the format. Hopefully you wrote it down. If you didn't write it down, go ahead and pause the video and go back and write down your notes and make sure you have everything, so that when you're doing your practice activity today, you will be in a-okay position to get them all correct. All right, thanks.